All right, cool. Okay, all right. Well, welcome everyone. And Mike, thank you for accepting my invitation to meet with us today. We've still got a few people joining, so you'll hear that bang, that bell in the background. I try to disable it, but I haven't been able to do that, so it's a little bit annoying, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So Mike, we're a bunch of we're a group of conscious explorers. We're predominantly from Howdy McCoskey's local platform. Do you know Howdy McCoskey at all?
I'm vaguely familiar with him. I've seen a video or two of his
Mhm.
during my kind of scanning through YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. He removed himself from YouTube actually, and he's now on the locals platform, and so we've got a big community there, and we're conscious explorers essentially. So I think that's a fitting name for all of us. A few of us from that group, from the Howdy's group, have branched out, and we branched out to explore OBEs and lucid dreaming predominantly. So I'm sure, like a lot of us here, there's a few of us here that'll have some questions for you around that, I'm sure.
Okay.
Many of us here have also reviewed your videos, so rather than go into your background, you've shared a few of that, you've shared a bit about yourself on those videos. We'll jump straight into a Q&A session. Before we get started, is there anything that you'd like to share with the group at all before we jump into the Q&A?
Not really. I mean, thank you for inviting me. It's always good to get together with other people that are like-minded and are looking to do something more with their life. That's the whole reason I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, and like Christy said, and everybody here, I'm sure, like we're very grateful for you just being so gracious with your time and willing to spend that time with us today. So I guess so. I'll jump in with a few questions, and then I'll just open it up to the group. So one of the questions that I think is top of mind for me right now is the discernment of just distinguishing between having a spiritual encounter and what is referred to as like an illusion that's created by our perceptions with the external entities. So how are you able to discern that you are connecting, that you are not connecting with an entity?
There's always there's always some illusional um, interlaced with it. So let me give you an example. So a lot of what I see now, if I see another being, most of the time they take a form of human, which I know that's an illusion right off the bat. They're not human. They're utilizing that illusion to make me either feel more trusting in them or to feel more comfortable. Also, the background most of the time is an illusion because it looks like something that would be in our physical world. So right off the bat, I just take that for granted. There's always going to be some format of illusion anytime you meet a lot of these, anything it's portraying itself, especially to be something that you would see as an angel or think as a demon or something of that nature. They're always going to be doing that because they can always control what they look like and their background, just like as if we can control ourselves. If they were able to see us at a movie set and we can dress up, it would be something similar to that. But they have the ability to change things far beyond what we can do on a physical level. So that's kind of, I take that for granted.
Mm.
The actual event and the connection, I know from hundreds of experiences over time, time after time after time, I know that it's a connection. But what I have to do is I have to utilize the information that I receive and that the experience, and then I don't really put a lot of weight into what I see because I know most of the time that is an illusion. You have to almost take that for granted.
Yeah, yeah. So are there challenges or risks associated with projecting your consciousness out into other dimensions or realities?
No, there's absolutely, from what I've found, there's absolutely no issue with, of danger to me at any time. Now, let me start back a little bit from the beginning on this aspect. I have a very strong belief system, and I also have strong morals. So for me, it's never been about going there with any preconceived notions. I think that's very important. I go there as if I'm there to record the incident, document it, and act as a neutral party. So when I go there, completely open-minded, I don't have any preconceived notions. I go there, I experience it, I come back, and I document it as I've experienced it. Sometimes it won't make sense to me. I might have to look at it with a lot of other documented experiences over a long period of time in order to put things together to make sense of what I was experiencing. And usually they will come together over time, but sometimes it takes more than 1 or 5 or 6 experiences within a certain aspect in order to really completely be able to understand it. Or I may have to learn something else in order to put that into respect with that, so that I can understand what was going on there. So it's kind of been over time, but I've never been in a situation ever that I've been fearful. Now, in the dream state, that's a different story. Now, when I'm going through the portal experiences, this is not the astral. It has nothing to do with the astral. This is beyond the astral, beyond the mental planes. These are on different levels. Now, in the astral and in the dream state, you can experience some things based upon what's going on there. But everything that I've experienced that has to do with anything fear-based or threatening has always been in the dream state. And I'm lucid at the times those are occurring.
So how do you know that you're beyond the astral, that you're in a totally different dimension? What alerts you to that knowing? Because it all seems the same, doesn't it?
If I'm in the astral now, obviously you know about the 3-body system and that sort of thing. What happens is when you're in the astral, your consciousness is transferred to your spirit body, which means your physical body is no longer active. You can't control your physical body when your consciousness is so you're having a out-of-body experience, you're lucid within your spirit body. So that means you can't move your physical body. When I'm having these portal experiences, I'm having the experience, I could get up and stand up. I can move my hands, my feet. So I know for a fact I'm not transferred into the astral. I know that I'm not in that form. I've been in that form before, and I know what it feels like. This is a form of moving my consciousness, not my spirit body and not in my soul within the mental planes either. I understand the whole process. I've been in the astral, I've been lucid, and I've gone through all the aspects of this. Most of what I'm experiencing is through a state that I would most likely compare it to the hypnagogic state. It might not be exactly in that state, but it's within that realm, as is the daydream state. Very similar. So it's somewhere between hypnagogic and daydream state.
Okay. I was listening to, and this will be my last question, and then I'll hand it over to the community. So guys, get ready. I was listening. Are you aware of Joel Schaefer from the Perceiver channel at all?
No.
Or Archaics? I'm just curious. Archaics.
I'm not familiar with them.
Well, there was an interview the other day, and Archaics was actually interviewing Joel Schaefer, and he was saying, he's a follower of, or he does Toltec. He talks about the Toltec all the time, and he, a lot of us here, we're aware of certain terms as soul trap, or whether we believe in it or not is another thing. But there's definitely something that's going on out there in terms of being in a simulation and matrix and all of that. But what Joel says is that the Toltec believe that there's a way to deal and face the entities here now while we're in the physical body, and that we don't actually have to wait until the physical body dies to do this, and that in fact it's actually better for us to do this while we are in the physical body now, before we pass over. So to deal with these entities and you know, and be aware of, you know, how they play with our perceptions while we're here on this planet. Are you aware of a way of how, he didn't go into how you can do this though, so I'm just curious, is there something there that you could offer to that at all?
Well, I go through this in the Spiritualist Manifesto, and then also through I don't remember the name. Anyways, The Illusion of the Physical Life, my last book. But what's happening is, and this is what I've deducted through the years and through my experiences. We're living within a multi-layered illusional state. So, which means there's multiple astral levels, multiple mental planes. There's different dimensions, alternate realities. We've got a mishmash of all these things going on around us. Besides the fact that we see about 0.1% of the visual spectrum with our physical eyes, which means there's probably a whole lot of activity going on around us that we just can't see. So there's multiple levels of deception that we have to encounter on a daily basis. You know, when you're in the astral, when you're sleeping, you're getting programmed. And there's so many other things above and beyond that we're getting. And besides that, we're insulated from our source. So we've got all these things going on. So what I do is I tell people, okay, the first thing you need to do is become conscious within your life. You're lucid within your life. What you need to do is you need to be aware of what's going on. And then question all your beliefs, question everything. Because when you begin to question it, you can look at it from different perspectives, and then you can understand what is more truth and more lies. Because there's no real black and white answers. They're all gray areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to get in control of our feelings, get in control of our emotions, and get in control of our thoughts, which means you need to be consciously aware of everything that you think, you feel, or the way you act. When you're consciously aware of all that, then what you need to do is work on becoming conscious within different states of being. Because when we leave this place, we pass on, we're going to leave and go to another level of illusion. Just like when you're in a dream and you're not conscious, things are going to occur that you wouldn't normally allow to happen during the daily life. You're going to wake up and you're going to go, well, I would have never done that. That's just not the way I work. Well, it's because your subconsciousness is in control when you're not consciously in the astral. Your subconsciousness is what I call the enemy from within. It's a filtering process that filters us away from other alternate realities, other dimensions. And when you're in the astral, it's going to experience that, but you're going to get things in return as a dream, which is like most of the time it's useless information. I've been documenting dreams for over 30 years, and you can go back and look at things, and there's really not there's not a lot in there that's going to really be of value. Why? Because it's filtered information. It's filtered for you. They don't want you to see what's going on here. You know, this is not that. It's just more shiny objects to try to focus on.
Yeah.
So the subconsciousness, what I was doing is I realized through the dream state many years ago that my subconsciousness was making connections when I'm in the daydream state. There's things coming back and I didn't know what it was. And that's how I determined what glimpses were. Okay. Glimpses is very near a hypnagogic state of consciousness. I was able to take my waking consciousness along with the subconscious, and I was able to experience it and then bring the information back. Okay. So then I'm realizing, hey, there's alternate realities, different dimensions out there that we're visiting. All of us are visiting on a daily basis, but we're not getting that information back. So that's why I had to try to figure out what was going on. So our subconsciousness is not filtering that back to us, it's blocking that. It's another, so everywhere we go, we've got our subconsciousness there as a shield to keep us away and dumb down so that we don't understand what's happening around us all the time. So we've got so many different levels of deception, and it's just being filtered back as garbage or useless information. So it's very, so what I thought was, okay, so if we need to become consciously aware of ourselves so that when we're in these different states of being, whether it's a daydream state or a dream, if we were consciously aware, then that sets us up so that when we pass on and we go into the state, which is most likely going to be in a drug-like illusional state, at some point, your subconsciousness is going to be making these agreements and these decisions for you while you're back there in a dreamy-like state going, yeah, that's cool, I'll do that, blah, 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 because you're not in full control. The only way you can be in full control of your decisions is to be consciously lucid and aware of your situation. So that's why you need to train yourself in these illusional states so that when it comes time for you to go to that situation, you're lucid and consciously aware of what's going on. You make your decision based upon what you want, not by some drug-like state that you're going to accept everything. And I think that's what's happening most of the time, because I see it on different levels. When I first started going into the glimpses, you can easily, if you're not 100% or 150% focused, you can easily drift into that dreamlike state and it just takes you off. It's very, very difficult. But once you have mastered it and you keep over and over experiencing it, eventually you build up a resistance to it. And then you have the ability to kind of ignore what's happening around you and just hyper focus on the situation and the experience that you're in.
So is it through the practice of lucid dreaming and astral travel or OBE?
I would explain it as, it first started when I began.
What I mean is the training ground.
Right. Yeah, well, I'll go, that's where I'm at going right now. So what I did was, when I first tried to have out-of-body experiences, I couldn't do it with the vibration. I tried all these methods and they didn't work. The only one that worked for me was asking myself many times during the day if I was awake or asleep. Then I would look at a solid object, I would turn away and look at it again. If it had not changed, then I knew I was not in the dream state, because the dream state, well, things will change really drastically. So I got in the habit of constantly questioning myself. Now, this is over about a year's time. And by questioning myself on maybe an hourly basis over a period of a year, I began to set myself up for, if something changed in a dream, even if I didn't have to ask myself, I would notice it immediately. If something wasn't right, my consciousness would pick it up. So by training myself to do that, that's how I was able to be successful in the glimpses, because I was somehow autonomously picking up stuff that was happening in the daydream state because I trained myself to do that. So by questioning yourself on a regular basis every day, you're setting yourself up to pick things up that might just be, because a lot of times during the day, you'll say, oh, that was like a deja vu or something. That was kind of weird. But all of a sudden, you'll start picking these things up that you would have never noticed before, because consciously, it's like you're on level 100. It's super aware. So now you're picking up things that you didn't know that were there. And that's how I set myself up. And this is how, when I go into that conscious brain level activity, my consciousness automatically comes in. It just busts in because it knows things have changed and I'm there and aware. And that's the thing. Becoming aware during those circumstances is the most important part, But first, you have to train yourself to be able to do that. And it's not hard, it just takes time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and practicing
Right. Yeah.
the awareness of everything around you in the physical life, like before you go
Right.
into dream state, so that it transfers into that, right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right. So I do have a question in the chat, but I'll let Christy go ahead, and then Linda, I'll come to your question.
Thank you. Two questions. First of all, if the subconscious is the enemy within, is there a way to use hypnosis or a method to go back in and reprogram our subconscious so that we get the real version of reality? Or is there a way to override that programming in a way that wouldn't break our mind? And if so, what kind of wording would you recommend? And then secondly, the more I observe, I have weird things happen in my life every day, but I've been pushing myself to observe new things every day. And the more new, weird, unusual things I didn't notice before, it seems like the more weird, unexpected things show up more and more in my everyday life. For instance, I might notice something one day, and then 3 days later, I swear all the lamps in our downtown area are completely different. So I'm wondering if our observing these unusual things by asking these habits of if that's normal, or is this real, or is this dreaming, that I'm actually getting feedback where things are changing almost on a daily basis. And you can't validate it with other people because I feel like I'm stepping into another timeline that was already in existence for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Start with your first question. Ask me that again, just the first one.
So with the subconscious, yeah. So with the subconscious, is there a way to go in and hypnotize yourself or others to reprogram or override the subconscious so that we can gain more awareness without it getting in our way?
I think the subconsciousness is connected with the three-body system, which none of them are ours. My belief is that we are the waking conscious system. We are the consciousness. We are somehow trapped within this three-body system, and the subconsciousness is kind of a filter or our shield that keeps us from a lot of what's going on. So I would say no. I would say there's no way to actually reprogram the subconsciousness, because I believe the system that keeps us where we are, imprisoned where we're at, is obviously up many levels. And what that does is that utilizes the subconsciousness around us. So we are trapped within the subconsciousness, the physical body, the spirit body, and the soul. So we're all stuck in with them. Somehow we're all tethered within that. And right now, there's no way that I know of to do that. But what I have done is bypass its shield, what I would call it, or its filters. I found ways around it. And that's the only way that I would do that. That's why I believe a lot of times when people go under hypnosis, the subconsciousness will bring about, because it's part of the hive mind. And what it'll do is it'll say, okay, you were here, you were here, you were this, and give us all this information. But if you notice, there's no usable information. There's no, hey, this is how we get free energy. Or, hey, let's save all the 460,000 missing children every year in the United States. Let's deal with the things at hand. Why do we have to deal with, we don't care what grandma's going to wear tomorrow, and we don't care what kind of a new house you're going to have potentially. Let's deal with the real problems we have. And that you will never get answers to that. You'll always get, oh, well, yeah, you were Jesus one time, so we're going to tell you about how you were Jesus, or you used to be Einstein. It's always going to stroke your ego. It's always going to tell you what you want to hear, because the etheric database is all around us. It records everything about us, everything we think, feel, emotions, whatever. So it's going to feed off of that, and it's going to read you and then give you all the information that you believe that you want to hear, whether it's, you don't consciously remember that, but it's got a memory that is far beyond anything we can perceive. So yeah, there's not a way to reprogram it, but there are ways around it. And that's what we have to do. We have to work our way around things right now until we can find a way to dismantle the system. But that's why I provided a way that we could, once we pass on, a way for us to be able to utilize in order for us to best cover ourselves in that scenario.
Thank you.
And your second question was, now, are you perceiving these things with your physical eyes or with your third eye? That's the first question.
Physical eye, although I do lucid dream and have very significant dream time, and I also have experiences in the hypnagogic. So I feel kind of vulnerable sometimes in all of those, but I'm starting to, like for instance, a cricket showed up in my bedroom and it chirped me awake all night long. And so I was constantly checking if I was in a dream or if I really had a cricket in my bedroom. So weird things. The more I'm looking around me with my physical eyes and observing things I didn't notice before or could have swore they were different before, the more bizarre things begin to illustrate themselves around me. So I was wondering what is happening with that kind of is it us projecting?
Let me use a scenario that people are familiar with. A lot of people see UFOs on a regular basis, like they're there, they just show up and then they disappear. Okay. And they must have disappeared. They must have went through a portal. They must have did something. Okay. The way I look at it is I know even the astral, mental planes, physical planes, they're all on some kind of they're all on a frequency base. Now, what happens is when I'm connecting with these dimensions or alternate realities, my perspective is on those frequencies. You have to match your brain activity wave or the way you vibrate in order to access those levels. Okay. So what's happening is, say we run at 86 hertz on a physical level. UFO comes in, say they're at 95 hertz. They come in at 86 hertz. They come around, they fly around, boom, they go back to 95 hertz or whatever frequency they're on. So, oh no, they appeared and disappeared. No, they didn't really do anything. They just changed the frequency base so that now they're at a level above where we can see, then they're at our level of sight, then they go and change their frequency back to another level. So they're not really going anywhere. They're still there. We just perceive them because it's our perspective on our plane of visual sight. So what's happening is, and things can change easily. Even like Bigfoot. I said, you know what? If Bigfoot had the ability to change any type of frequency, if it's not 100% physical being, which nobody's caught one, so they don't know, they could be doing the same thing. So there's a lot of things that we have, like Dogman and Bigfoot. They come into our visual range, and he was just there. He crossed the road, and now he's gone. Well, he's probably still there. We don't understand everything that's going on, so yet we just say, well, it's magic or it's not real or whatever, because we can't explain it. But a lot of ways, there are ways to explain it. It's just that we just don't understand the way the things are set up. So with you, it's very easy to manipulate visual for somebody, not the way we were able to do it, but things can change. What you can do is, if you start questioning things, your consciousness is going to begin to pick up things, and you're going to become more aware. And once you become more aware, then maybe these things won't be happening to you because you're hyper-focused on where you're at. And maybe these things will begin to not happen as much, or maybe they will happen more. But there's only one way to really tell, is if you know for a fact you're fully consciously aware because you practice it so much that you're now like super hyper focused on it. You know, once it catches a change in anything in your environment, you're going to focus on it. And then you'll know whether it's really happening or it's an illusional field that's kind of just throwing itself out there. So there's a couple different ways to do it, but becoming really hyper lucid is about the only way you can really tell.
Thank you.
Stephen says, we rationalize and justify things and really see those coping skills as being worthless in the big picture view. There's a question here from Linda Anna. She says, what, if anything, is the difference, in Mike's opinion, is the difference between the astral he visits and the non-ordinary reality one enters during a shamanic journey? Also, who are these spirits in the shamanic journey in the context of the demiurge creation?
I've never had a shamanic journey, so I don't know. I don't know what that is. So for me, I don't have an experience in shamanic journeys. What my experience is, when I started having these, my whole purpose was to get on the astral. It wasn't, I didn't have any other portals, just came into the mix. I didn't have any preconceived, I didn't know anything about portals other than what I read and, you know, on some of the physics books. That I didn't even know what they were when they first started. So my whole focus was on the astral. I was sidetracked away from the astral the whole time. I kept, I could access it through lucid dreaming, but it wasn't working like I thought it would. I started experiencing these other things, and it wasn't by intention. I was just trying to figure out what was going on. I'm just led on these alternate paths. And after a while, after fighting it for a couple of years, I'm just like, all right, well, I'll go along with it just to see what happens. I mean, I didn't follow I didn't know meditation things or shamanic journeys. I didn't follow anybody. I just was trying to follow my own path to figure out what was going on. And even years into it, I'm like, what am I going to say? So I had to put all my stuff together. And then I had to go through after decades of it, I said, there's got to be some information here that's worthwhile to people that I can share, because otherwise it's just a waste of time. And I spent years going through all this stuff and putting together all my experiences. And I have them all the time. So it's like, I'm still compiling, still documenting, still, putting everything together. And there's no black or white answers. It's all a gray area. And so what I did was I had to dig down below the surface to find out, okay, so I have these experiences. I know what they are on the surface, but I need to find out what's down below. What's really happening that makes sense, that really is causing these events. And as I started discovering it and started questioning myself, then my experiences changed. So what happened was I started having these nightmare events again. And I hadn't had them since I was a kid. And they really started heavy. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm an adult. What is this going on? Well, what was happening is as soon as I would begin the experience, and then how not your frustration level, but it almost really gets to you in the dream state. And then your hair starts to stand up on the back of your neck. I'm pulled out and I'm put in a portal. It would happen every time. So I was basically being desensitized from these events over a year's amount of time. So then eventually I got to the point where I stood up to this dark object. It finally approached me, and I stood to it face to face. I was lucid in the dream. I knew what I was doing. And I said, I'm not going to put up with this crap. And then I turned my back on it and I walked away. And at that point, I was taken out into another portal. And at that point, I saw what those beings looked like. It showed me what they actually looked like. Of course, it was an illusion. What I was seeing a black image, but it showed me two of what were there. There was another one in the room too. It showed me what they really looked like. But still, for me, it doesn't really matter because I don't fear them. And I think what's happening is we're being manipulated for obviously our low level energy, fear, depression, all this sort of thing. And that's what they're taking from us. What they're doing is they want us to produce fear and depression and anxiety and all the low level things that are going to allow them to feed off of us, because we are spirit beings in physical bodies and we are energy sources. That's the whole purpose for us being here. And what I tell people when they ask me about the astral, I said, you have to understand that the astral, if the earth is a prison, then the astral is the prison yard.
Yeah.
The beings on there are the guards. And they're going to tell you what you want to hear because they have obviously access to all the records, and they're going to make you think that, hey, it's unlimited here. You can do what you want. And everything's cool. And they're going to make sure that you're going to, if you'll fly under their wing, then they're going to give you the information that is filtered just like your subconsciousness. It's just like you're escaping to the yard of the prison, and you're not going to get any farther than that.
So the importance of asserting your strong boundaries, it comes into play here, doesn't it? Very much so.
Yeah, and it's not even just your strong boundaries. It's the fact that, if you have strong beliefs, and you have you have very strong values, then you know where your limitations are at. And for me, when I go to most of the time, I'll have these experiences, and there's nothing that is anywhere near trying to be frightening or any of that nature. It's all on the even level. But like in the dream state, some of the areas, that's where it began. And I'm like, I just won't put up with that crap. I go here for experience, and I come here for information. I'm not coming here to take anybody's crap. I don't care if they're spiritual or not. That's just not going to happen with me. I just won't put up with that stuff. And I think after time, when you prove yourself, then they realize, well, I'm not milking him for any fear, because he's not going to do that. That's not going to happen. Once you prove yourself, then it becomes a whole different story. At that point, things changed for me, even in the alternate dimensions, because at that point, I was no longer being what I would call solicited. They begin to not show up when you're there. So what happens is your experience will change once you have an understanding of what's happening. The manipulation, there's no reason to manipulate somebody who's not going to buy into it. Once you understand the levels of manipulation, then they're not going to try to sell you, because it's a waste of their time. They're going to go somewhere where there's going to be somebody. Because once you first start showing up on these levels, oh man, they're all over the place. It's like going to the pyramids. All the tour guides, they want to fly you go under their wing. They're going to give you all the good information. But once you've been there for a while, it's not going to happen that way.
So do you think what do you think of this place? So do you think we're in a soul trap, and is it your intention to leave when you leave that, like leave through one of the portals when you die, when you pass away?
Well, first of all, I don't believe in soul trap, because the soul, I believe, is part of the 3-body system that we're trapped in. So we're not part of the soul. We're a consciousness. We're an energy source, and the soul does have some mass. So that's not what we are. We're not mass. So yeah, for me, moving on after this experience is going to be what I'm going to get out of it. Portal wise, that's a different story. Portals they're highly, how would I say? They're highly, they're watched. They're being, the whole system of portals is under surveillance and under a certain type of control. Now, when I made a connection, I don't know, about a little over a year ago, and that's when I think I pissed somebody off and they blocked me. At that point, things changed a little bit for my connections, and they told me that I did. So things changed for my connections a bit. I had to rearrange the way that I access things, but there's a certain type of surveillance over what's happening with the portals. Otherwise, I think things could just go crazy. That's why I was being told when I first started going to these situations that there was a way that I could keep them open, and they wanted to show me how to keep them open. And that was my first red flag. I said, I'm not going to allow that to happen, because obviously if you can't open your own, not going to leave my area open to somebody else. So what I was doing is there was a portal opening between myself and that area. And then they were saying, oh, we'll show you how to leave it open. I'm thinking, well, number one, a portal requires an energy source. If you don't have energy to keep it open, then it's not going to stay open. And then if you utilize my portal and I keep it open, then you're going to drain whatever energy. If it's coming from me, then I don't have the ability to be able to maintain it. So.
Interesting. Go ahead, Christy.
Thank you. 2 questions. So kind of going back to what we were talking about, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So I think what you're saying is that when we have an experience, it's not happening to us, but it's like turning into a radio dial and a signal. So maybe we get static and we see, or we can hear a few different channels at the same time, but we're tuned in and our tuning system is adjusting. And that's when we're having experiences that come and go.
Well, I just liken it to radio frequencies, because if you're in any area, all the radio frequencies are there for your tuner, and you have to tune into each channel in order to hear it. So what I liken it to is when I make these connections are like, if your brainwave activity is at a certain level, then I make the connection to a level that equals that frequency. So my perspective is on that frequency. So that's what I liken it to. I can't guarantee you that's the way everything works, but I do know the astral planes, everything is layered on top of us. Everything is here. So when somebody says, yeah, I connected with another dimension, well, that other dimension could be just right here. They're always here. When you're on the astral, you're like, okay, well, I can see my vehicle and it's my house right there, depending on which level you're on, you can still see it. It's still there. So you're like, okay, well, I'm in the same place. I'm just in a different frequency That way, and that's how things work. I mean, you really don't have to travel 100 light years to get somewhere. You just need to have a doorway or the match the frequency basis for your consciousness to travel to that, or your actual astral body to travel to that. Now, with the astral body, it's always on the astral plane, even though it's connected to your body. So you're just moving your consciousness to it, and your spirit body will only travel within the 13 or 12 planes of the astral. It won't travel beyond that. That's why your soul travels on the mental planes, which is beyond the astral planes. So they have their limitations. So what I'm doing is I'm not utilizing either one of those. I'm utilizing my consciousness to make these connections, and I utilize the portals in order for that to happen. So you're making connections with things that would be like a radio station. So if I say I wanted to access, I don't know, Dimension 3 or whatever, you would figure out what channel that was. Now, when I make these connections, I don't know which dimension or which alternate reality I'm connecting with, because it's different every time. So I don't have like the ability to tune into directly into the one that I visited last time. I don't have that ability.
Got it. So in other words, like if I'm seeing having an experience with a being, it doesn't mean that the being came to me. It just means that I've been able to adjust to the channel to perceive it. And I'm wondering if this is the same thing that Cosmonauta refers to as the assemblage point. And then also I'd love to know what your opinion is on where, I'm not into this, but I'm hearing it everywhere. Galactic Federation, Pleiadians, Arcturians, I'm familiar with all this, but I was wondering where you position, or what your idea is on where they're positioned in this whole prison fence that we're in, that I would assume that they're all part of that same system. Curious what you would say.
Well, this is the first thing I tell everybody is, and I called it the savior effect. Now, we have all these problems on here. We understand it. Whether or not you believe they're beyond, they start beyond us is a different story. But there's always the savior story. The savior effect is always going to be, people are going, well, you know what? If we believe hard enough, somebody's going to be here to save us. And it could be the aliens, could be Jesus, could be Buddha, could be grandma, could be anybody. Somebody's going to come here and save us. And they're going to clean our water. They're going to get rid of all the trash. They're going to make Earth pristine again. They're going to move to the 5th dimension. Everything's going to be perfect because somebody else is going to take their time and their energy, fix all of our screw ups, and put us somewhere where we want to be. Now, who in the hell is want to do that? Realistically, when does that ever happen? Never. It's not going to happen. It's because people. From what I heard this yesterday, I call it, and I adopted it, the hope virus. Everybody's got hope. Oh, yeah, there's always going to be somebody to save us. There's always going to be somebody just to bail us out at the last minute. It's like a movie. You watch the movie and you're just waiting for the hero to come in at the last minute and save everybody. That's what we expect, because it's so much easier to rely on somebody else to fix your problems than it is for yourself. It's not that easy. It's not going to happen that way. And this story comes out. And it's the same thing. A lot of times you hear these near-death experience people. I'm not saying that they're all in this way, but if you look at it, 95% or 99% of them is probably like, yeah, I saw the angels and they told me it's going to be all right and everything's going to be great. And then I came back here and I know it's so much better. Well, of course, if you're going to have somebody, if everybody believed in it was going to be great when you die, then nobody would ever try to get leave, because it's going to be perfect. And that's why the astral and beyond looks better, because you catch more flies with honey than you do with salt. You don't want people thinking, well, it's all full of demons. We don't want to go there. No, I don't trust them anybody. No, we want to put misinformation out there, just like the news does, just so people believe they're going to go somewhere better. And what's better? We're going to have the aliens save us. That's a great story. Let's all, and if you think about it, the lady who started this, she started on her own YouTube channel and obviously got really big. Then a big company called Gaia picked him up. Well, what is Gaia? Yep. It's corporate metaphysics.
Yes.
Eventually what's going to happen is all of the spiritual and metaphysical information is going to be in one huge database owned by corporations. And they're going to edit everything so that it all fits in this small cube. The cube that they want everybody to follow.
Exactly.
Yeah, good.
I completely agree. So that leads me into kind of a broader question is what I consider the ultimate black pill, which is the idea of programs like the super soldier programs and 20 and back, where they can continue to reanimate you death after death after death within moments. The idea that you're eternally unable to die. And this just makes me, I don't know, I would be curious to know what you think about the quote, quote, super soldier programs. But to me, I do believe that they can continue to reanimate us just like we do with reincarnation. And that if we don't figure out how we want to leave here, we're going to be entrapped in another system within this system because we think our escape is death, and it's just the beginning of another death. So what do you think about the super soldier programs, or the idea that we're being used in warring, and that we're basically a commodity on endless levels?
Well, you have to remember this. You have to question everything. There's so much misinformation out there, because what they want people to do is they want so many pathways out there that people just go in all these directions. Everybody's so busy. They're exploring the pyramids, how they were made, and what about old, past civilizations, and the super soldier and Dogman and Bigfoot. What they do is they send you on all these paths, and most of them are just dead ends. You're never going to get any information that's going to be, hardcore foundational information. It's all going to be just gray area stuff. They put all these shiny objects out there, and people just go after them. As soon as a new one comes out, oh, I'm going to go investigate that one. It's just a waste of your time. When you should be, if we really want to find out and get to the bottom of this, what we do is get in control of ourselves. At that point, then we can begin to control what's outside of us. We can make changes in what's going on, because if we're not fixed, we can't fix anything else. We still have to live here every day until we die. So that means we could be here for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30 more years. So you have to make where you're at better, because in the meantime, we're going to have to deal with all these other issues. And if you are in control of yourself, but we're not in control of what's happening in our world, then you'll be in a situation in 5 or 10 years that is so dire that you won't need to be worrying about your spirituality. You'll be worrying about how to survive, just how to get enough food and stuff. What's happening is, while all these things are happening on the outside, the inside core is where we should be focusing on, because that's the first line of defense we should have. Because if we don't protect what's going on right now, we will have no rights, we will have no say-so, and you certainly probably won't have a way or ability for us to get together and talk about it.
Yeah, right on. I'm really glad that you brought that up. That's actually the pathway that I'm on myself, and I'm exploring, well, not even exploring, but living in the private, and helping people make that transition from the public system into the private system to live as a man or woman, and not be squashed by what's going on out there and what they're trying to do. Stephen, would you like to unmute and ask or share your perspectives or ask questions? I know I'm putting you on the spot there, but you always have so much good stuff to say as well. Can't. Okay, no worries. All right, well, I'm going to call you guys out. What about Norio? Norio, would you like to share some of your wisdom or ask any questions?
Yeah, what I'm mostly interested in is to understand and to share my understanding of how any reality is created, including this simulation. And I only discovered that we're in a simulation here once I discovered how it was created, and that everything that we think we are is only in the simulation and can never leave the simulation. It's only product of the simulation. But at our core being is actually multidimensional. We're just not aware of that. not consciously aware of that anyway. But so anyway, I've listened to some of Mike Martin's interviews, and I find them fascinating, and I can't say that I know a whole lot about what I have very little direct information about what Mike Martin talks about. So I'm fascinated by it at the same time.
I'd like to address one of the things you just said, and
Uh-huh.
I totally agree with it because, and I've said it many times, and this is the conclusion I came to in these experiences. Now, as I was exploring these, I thought they were just other dimensions. Then I started to realize there were times when I was in situations where I'm consciously in this other body or in this other being, and this other being, and I'm like, okay, what's that? And it just happens more and more. And I'm like, okay, that means we are living alternate lives simultaneously with what's happening here. And it didn't just happen a handful of times. This has happened probably, I don't know, maybe 100 or so times. It happens, periodically. And it's information that would be general conversation between two people that knew each other. And I'm there in this conversation as this other being, listening to this other being, and then I'm back. So it happens to us on a regular basis. So we're not only visiting other dimensions, but other realities and alternate realities, because we're living through what's happening here as well as many theirs.
Mhm.
So I agree totally with that.
Yeah, and one of the things that was realized, not by this character, but was recognized, is that time itself is created through our consciousness. It's not fixed. And so I share with people that this reality is a linear time-based reality, but that linear time is only in this specific reality. And so that's the other thing. With
your
Go ahead.
time, so let me give you this perspective on this, okay? Anytime I'm there, so I'm still physically here. I know I'm still physically here. I have full control of my physical body. Yet my consciousness is there. So I know I'm in two places simultaneously, just as if you were in an out-of-body experience, okay? So while I'm there, I don't have any reference of time. Time and space do not exist. Neither do physical properties that we understand while in the body, because they're not required. And let me say this too. Now, when you're in those situations, to understand what others are saying, telepathy is a given. It's automatic. It's autonomous. All of these things that are happening while I'm there, I'm seeing it. That's automatic. I'm hearing it. It's telepathy because we don't speak. And I'm experiencing it. So all this is happening, and I have absolutely zero frame of time. I don't even think of time. I don't think of space. I don't think of any of the properties. There's nothing. It doesn't exist there. So when I would say our physical reference of time might not be consciously, it might be connected through the three-body system and the subconscious, because when I'm consciously there, I don't have the reference points, and it doesn't even come to mind. So it's a whole different spectrum of understanding. And when I come back, many times I've said, hey, I wonder how long I was gone, because at that point, I don't have a way of clicking something to say when I left and when I got back. I just don't have any reference to that. It might seem like a half an hour or an hour over there. If I had to guess, it would say, oh, that was quite a while, because it was a large conversation. But it could have been just like a dream in a millisecond, and I'm back. So there is absolutely no reference of any physical properties whatsoever. There's no There's no time space. There's no nothing.
Yeah. Uh,
So you're right in those aspects. I mean, yeah, you're totally correct.
Cool.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Norio. Go ahead, Christy. Great questions too, by the way, Christy.
I've got so many questions. This is such
I
an
love
honor
your
to have
questions.
you here. I like you described, I had an experience at one point where I entered into a scene that felt like I was already in the scene. It was with a spider being, and I was it was bizarre, but regardless, she threw me back into my waking body, but it's like parts of that dream showed up into my reality here at the same time. So would that category, I mean, do you have that experience, or is there something that goes with when that experience of another place and time comes back into this realm and other people observe it at the same time to validate that it's also occurring here?
I haven't had that experience, but a gentleman that I do a show podcast with, United Forces, Robert, when I first met him, he told me about the experience that he had that was similar to that. He was in an experience that just kind of wished over him. And he knew that he was going to be in this scenario with, I think, his girlfriend at the time and his friend who was his roommate and him. He just kind of, it filtered away from him. He continued walking into that room. He was in that situation, and he knew that was the same situation he had just been in through this other realm. And he didn't remember what the verbiage was. But as his roommate said something, he goes, "That's what I knew you were going to say." And then his girlfriend said something, and he said, I knew you were going to say that, but he couldn't remember what he was supposed to say. And he said that, and then he knew he was supposed to say that. So he was reliving an incident that he had just seen moments before that. So it could be, I don't have an answer for that, but what's happening is like I said, there's so many levels to this that we're not probably going to understand. We'll understand parts of it, but we won't understand the full spectrum of it, because it's far beyond what we could understand, human understanding, because we've obviously been filtered and dumbed down in this situation. Because if you're going to have somebody that you're going to control, then you don't want them to have all of their faculties in their memory. Otherwise, they're going to be able to find a way out. So as we're learning and we're figuring things out, we're open to more information to flow into us so that we can begin to understand the situation that we're in. Now, the more you look, the harder you look, generally, the more comes to you. The more you talk about, a lot of times when you're talking with people, you might say something that rings a bell in my head, and I'm like, oh, well, now that something I heard 5 years ago makes sense, because just because you said something, it just rang into my memory. So things of that nature, and that's why I repeat a lot of what I say in my videos and stuff, because people sometimes need to hear things 10, 50, 100 times before it rings true with them, or before it kind of is the key that opens up something in your mind that maybe wasn't, that wasn't completely clear at one time.
So do you think the mind is as all powerful here as we're told it is when it comes to creating and quote, quote, manifesting and those things? How much influence do you think we really have here as a collective versus as an individual?
I think the mind is just a piece of physical matter. The actual, our information is, since we've been obviously memory wiped in order to come here, our information comes from outside, and it's not within this realm. The information comes to us. So let me give you an example. When the portals started, I didn't start them. There's no way when these portals began, there's no way I had the energy capacity to do anything of this nature. These were 4K full-size portals with messages. I'm like, and they were in a different language. I'm like, no, this is not me. I never found out who it was, but over time they've showed me things. They've never communicated with me. They never told me anything. They just showed me information. Now, for me, it didn't make sense, but after time I realized, okay, if you don't want to influence somebody to think the way you do, that you present them with information and then let them do with it what they want to. I didn't know how to create a portal. For many years, I experienced them, and eventually I go, well, maybe if I duplicate the way that I feel and I think at the time, I can duplicate it. So I was able to replicate them. Nobody showed me how to do it. It took me many years to do that. So over time, I've been shown these things. So obviously there's someone on the outside, whether it's obviously not somebody that, or any being that wants to show me what's going on. But so we do get help at times, but then we also have to question. I had to super question everything that I was receiving, because I go, if it's coming from an outside source, how do I know I can trust it? Maybe this is something that I can't trust. Maybe this is manipulation. Maybe it's deceit. I don't know. So
Possible that it's you,
no, it's not me.
not you. So you do think it's outside of even yourself?
No, it was another language. It was a language that I can't even. It was a language that was a mixture of like old Celtic writing, three-dimensional, and like hieroglyphics. It was a mixture of that. So, and I don't have a photographic memory. So when I saw it, I focused on it, but I couldn't duplicate it because it was foreign to me. So if I was going to communicate with myself, it certainly would have been in English or something I could try to understand.
Sure.
Mike, you were talking about portals, and you didn't know how to create a portal. Are you able to teach people how to create portals, or is that something that you do in any of your books?
Years ago, I tried to find out from people that scan brain activity, so that I could figure out which brainwave activity level that I was in. And I couldn't get anybody to commit to trying to figure it out. So I can't teach you what I can't describe. I mean, I can't give you, oh, it's brain level A or B. So that's why when I explain to people, when you're doing something, that's why the easiest way was to try to get you to realize, be conscious within the dream state, or the daydream state. The daydream state is the easiest one to be able to access, because that one, you don't have to fall asleep and then try to wake up within your dream. That's more difficult. But the daydream state, you could easily do that at any time of the day, just by starting to relax your mind, and you can even be just daydreaming. And you have to stay in control of yourself within that state. And then at some point, you're going to start to drift into it. And then that's when you need to catch yourself. So that's why I tell people, like with the glimpses, that's another portal connection, but it's an easier way to do it because it's something we all do. It's during the waking hour. So if you're not successful, you just try again. It's not like trying to go to sleep at night. If you do it while you're trying to wake up in a dream, and you're going to fall asleep, and it could be 2 hours before you wake up again. And then half the time when you're sleeping, you don't want to try it again because you're too tired.
Yeah, cool. Natalia, go ahead. I don't know if you're talking, Nat. You're on mute.
Were you talking to me right then?
Yeah, I was just saying,
because my thing goes in and out all day long, and so I didn't even hear that you said it was my turn.
No worries.
Anyway, I'm tremendously distracted because like about 15 minutes before this was going to start, and I was really looking forward to meet you, Mike, because I've watched all your stuff and I'm really into this. All of a sudden I have like gastrointestinal misery that's been going on throughout this, although I've been trying to listen. Just so what I was going to ask you is, and you may have covered this, but I wasn't able to get everything. But, if we're all collectively creating, like this whole concept, this whole new age thing of we create our own reality, we're manifesting our own, all this stuff. And then Archaics talks about there's the collective, consciousness that is lumbering along, and we're kind of all subject to, you know, whatever all that learning is, or whatever all those belief systems are, or whatever. And within that, we individually are, you know, kind of weaving our way and can kind of have our own experience, you know, which would explain why some people's lives are pretty good and other people's are pretty terrible, I guess. But so I don't know where you stand on that belief system, or if you think there's any credence to that, and if so, can we get out of this mess if
Yeah,
somehow?
we cover the getting out part, and but I will address the manifestation because Christy asked that, and I forgot to answer that. So we've been led down a path in a lot of ways, and I call it manifestation because it's a snake oil way to sell people on if you think well good enough and you think enough, you're going to have that new car, or you're going to have the new house, and you're going to have a lot of money. You're just going to be rich, super rich. And, you know, and if that was the case, you know, Santa Claus, the real Santa Claus would have been around a long time ago. You get that many kids thinking that way for all these decades, it would have happened. So that's malarkey. What they're trying to do is sell books. You know, they manifest money through selling their books, and that's what happens. It's just a snake oil thing. So at some point, we do affect what's happening around us. Now, you can do it in a negative way or a positive way. And a lot of times you're following down these paths. Oh, you're definitely affecting yourself in a negative way. You will be affected by it. And that's because here you are, you're going against the grain. And what I tell people is, we all have these MAC addresses. We're on a network right now, wireless network. We're walking around doing our thing. Once you start vibrating at different frequencies that don't fall in line with the rest of the flock, then you start to become somebody an undesirable in ways. And that's what you are. You're undesirable because you're not falling in line. You don't believe the level of crap that's going on, and you don't believe all the hype. You're not feeding into the drama. And that's why I tell people, get in control of your emotions, your feelings, and your thoughts, because you're the only one who can control any of that. And if people can walk up to you and say something and trigger you, and then you go off, then you're not in control. Because we all need to be in control of what's going on. Because if you go on YouTube, the first thing you watch is all these people going off and, you know, all this drama. What they're trying to do is they're trying to generate a thought process in everybody that you're just going to go fly off the handle. Your emotions and your feelings are going to rule you. And that's not the case, because we have a mind and we have control, and we should have control of ourselves. And if we want to be independent beings, then we need to act like it, and we need to live like it. So, you know, the information around us, the field around us is pushing us to be dependent. If you're dependent, then you're going to rely on others for information and everything. You want to be an independent being, therefore you're in charge of yourself, the way you think, and what happens to you. They don't want independence. They want people who are addicted to drugs. They want people that live off, that only receive checks from the government, because at that point they can control you. They can say, well, if you don't do this, then we're not going to give you your check this month. They want to be in total control, and that's where we're headed. Nobody should be in control of our lives. The only people that should be in control of our lives are ourselves. And we should make the decisions for ourselves. We should have the freedom to do as we please, as long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of others. Pretty simple law. I mean, that's just the way things should work. But no, we're pushed into rules and all these beliefs that are false in order for us to fall in line with what the main system wants us to do. So we need to be independent beings and think like independent beings. A lot of times you'll hear, you know, in the metaphysical world, yeah, we're all one and blah, blah, blah. No, we're all individuals. We have our individual thoughts and being. You take 5 individuals and put them in a room and say, okay, we're going to do the best for all of you. But they have to make one rule and you all have to follow it. Well, how does that fit everybody? It doesn't fit everybody. Things don't work that way. If we're all individuals, then we need to have our own individual perspectives and our own individual decisions. So they're just trying to create a flock mind and a flock society so that we all fit into the same mold, but that's just not what we are.
Yeah, 100%. And that's been going on for centuries, right? Natalia, did you have any more questions on that at all?
No, that's good. Thank you, Mike.
You know, just on that topic, Mike, I've been listening to this guy, Brandon Williams, and his website is called onestupidfuck.com. He's hilarious, but he's out there really giving a voice to what you're talking about, and he's putting solutions in place there for people to actually step out and start taking back control, right? Because that's what it's about. They've dumbed us down so much that you know, that we've been programmed to not even think for ourselves, that we depend for for people out there to save us, when in fact no one's going to save us, like you've been saying. We're here to save ourselves and reclaim our power too, right?
Right. I mean, going through the process that I've been going through has proved one thing, that there's no question for me in this. We are maybe utilizing probably less than 1% of what we have available to us. We have things available to us we can't even imagine. The portals, that's just a small thing. That's just a very small thing. There's no limit to what our abilities are. It's just that first we have to get ourselves out of this little tiny box, you know, which is our perceptions and our limitations. And some of it is, a lot of it is created by ourselves, because we fall into, okay, I got to follow this rule, and I got to follow this rule, and I can't go over here and do this. I can't do. There's so many things that we're telling ourselves that we can't do, that pretty soon there won't be anything left. So we're all in our comfort zones. You know, we like to have other people take care of things for us, but that's where we've made our mistake. We've hired representatives that do nothing but that fend for themselves. And we're pretty much just useless fodder when it comes down, cannon fodder. They don't care. Nobody else is gonna save us. So it's up to us to take charge and do it for ourselves. Yeah. You know, and we're, you know, working together, once people understand, is like the best thing we can do. But then again, we're never going to agree on the same thing, because we all have our own way of thinking. We have our own way of being. And that should be understood, because like I said, you can't get 5 people in a room and you ask one question. All 5 people are not going to probably agree with that, which is fine, because that's individuality. That's the way things work. But understanding what's going on with you and around you is your first step in being in control. Now, a lot of people are worried about, okay, when I die. Hey, we got to live here every day. We got to deal with the situation we have in front of us right now. You know, it's good to think about the future. It's good to plan for the future. But right now, we have to deal with the situation right now, because we're in a dire situation worldwide. This is not just in one place, because the conglomeration of a few have affected the many, and it's just getting worse. You know, we know what's wrong. I don't need to sit here and name all the problems we have. All of us are aware of them at different levels, but we need to address them. And if we don't address them, we can't just hire somebody to take care of it for us, because we can see where that went. That never worked.
Yeah. What's that? Okay. I'm not sure what that was, but we are so much on the same page there, Mike. Yeah, I mean, that's for another call potentially.
Right.
But, yeah, right on point there. Lisa, I'll come to you in a minute. I'll just ask Stephen's question. Stephen says here, can you ask Mike what if sound frequency is possible to create in the astral, and is our body's hearing while asleep affected? I experience sound flutter in and out as my consciousness comes back into my body. Does he know what that's about, or how sounds work in the astral? I just want to speak to that quickly myself. I have had out-of-body experiences, none of them by control. And there is a ringing sound. There's a ringing sound before I go into that. And I don't know if that's what Steve's talking about, but I've certainly heard it. So I'll hand that over to you, Mike.
Yeah, I haven't experienced that myself, because most everything I've experienced has been through lucid dreaming, and it's just I use the dream as a gateway into the astral. That's how I utilized it. And as a child, I didn't even go through that state. I went from a waking alert state directly into the astral state. There was a blink of an eye. So I close my eyes, I open them again really quick, and then I'm there. But in my adult state, then I had to utilize the lucid dreaming and the dreams as a gateway into the astral. So I didn't have that that transition from leaving the body and going through that. I was already into that state.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, going back to the thing about triggering emotions and being in control of those. So when you were talking about lucid dreaming, you said you had this practice that you would kind of, am I awake or am I dreaming, like every day for a year? Did you have something similar, a similar kind of everyday practice to to stop being triggered and to get control of emotions and not be kind of bothered by everyday life?
With the emotions, I think my biggest thing was I had to question everything. So when you're consciously aware and when you're lucid in your daily life, because a lot of times you'll know if you go on a drive, your mind wanders, you're in a daydream state or whatever, and you go, I don't even remember the past 10 or 15 miles. I just don't remember it because you're not all there. You have to remain lucid in your environment. So if you're around or amidst people and you're there's a potential of being triggered or something like that. If you remain hyper focused on the moment, and a lot of people say the present is a gift. Being in the present, hyper focused on the present, will mean that you are constantly questioning the way you feel, the way you think, and what's happening around you. So you will be really hyper focusing on yourself and making sure that you know exactly what's happening in every aspect of what you're doing. So if you do something or say something that's out of context, you're going to tell yourself, hey, yeah, just don't go there. And we all have that little voice in the back of our minds that tells us, hey, you probably shouldn't do that, or it alerts you. And a lot of times we will dismiss it. And if you dismiss it enough, that it just keeps getting pruned farther and farther back into your consciousness. It's pretty soon you're like, oh, it doesn't come up anymore. No, because you've dismissed it so many times that it just stopped showing up. So what you need to start doing is listen to a lot of the little things that are happening in the background. And if you take a conscious look into them and begin to take them seriously, then they will start to come forward. Because what's happening is the process in your brain and in your being will begin to prune things out. So if you, for some reason, you have a clock in your room and it ticks, but it bothers you when you're sleeping, you're just too tired to get up, so you don't want to deal with it. Eventually that gets pruned out of your consciousness. You start ignoring it. There's things you ignore that you forget about ignoring. And when somebody says, hey, doesn't that clock bother you? Oh, I've been ignoring it so long, I forgot all about it. It's because you're allowing yourself to put it in the background and it keeps getting pushed farther and farther back. So what you need to do is start bringing those things, allowing those things to come forward again, so that they'll alert you when situations, come up. You're like, yeah, or even take some of the body things that come up, like hair standing up on the back of your neck or whatever. Start listening to some of those things that happen to you, because they're happening for a reason. So maybe you need to just start tuning into yourself a little bit more. And as you start to begin to question yourself and really pay attention, those things will come forward. You just have to give them time. But it's a very difficult process. In no way, shape, or form is it easy. but it's work, and you have to have the drive, and you have to follow through with it. You know, once you start dismissing it and saying, "Oh, I'll get it next time," then it gets pushed back again, and you have to bring it forward again. So it's a fight, and it's not meant to be easy. That's the whole thing. You have a system that's working against you being in control. So that's how it works.
Yeah, but also too, you know, part of a lot of our natural way of being has been purposely dumbed down on us, and right from the get-go, from the day we were born, we were removed from our parents, you know, to go into school, separate us from our families, and separate you from yourself, right? It's all by design within the system. And so that, you know, so that's the work that we've got to do, is to come back to the self and trust and listen. And you can only do that in the present time, like you're saying. So yeah, very good.
Once you begin to experience even small amounts, you'll see small amounts of glimpses of which you have the capability of, and you'll begin to understand and believe, and it might disappear, it might dissipate. You might feel it for 5 minutes or a day, and then things will dissipate. Then they'll eventually come back. But what happens is, when you get that, and when you get that kind of knowing and feeling, then there's absolutely no doubt in your mind that you have abilities to do things that you can't even conceive. It's far beyond your understanding. And then you'll begin to believe in yourself at some times. But then at times, you're also going to go back into that pit again. If you get into that pit of despair or depression, it's so easy to keep adding to it and going deeper and deeper. And it's so much harder to get out of that pit. But if you don't apply yourself and get out of that pit, you'll never get out of there. And it's very difficult. But you're the only one that can get yourself out. So you have to apply yourself and stay diligent. And everybody goes into that pit. You know, everybody has time in there, but once you start feeling yourself going into it, you got to pull yourself out, because you're the only one that can control your feelings, your emotions, and be in control of what happens to you. You have to be consciously aware of what you're doing, what you're thinking, and it seems like a big job, but it's really not that bad. Once you become accustomed to it, then it becomes kind of the norm. Right now, we've been trained to not be aware of it. So now it just takes that much more effort to start and get on the train so that you can start moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like reigniting your light, your inner light, your spirit.
Right.
Go ahead, Christy.
You've mentioned that daydream state as being a kind of a great launch, and I understand the hypnagogic, but when you say daydream state, are you referring to the imagination, or the state we go into when we're busy crafting or driving? Or could you just help define how you what you consider the daydream state and what we can do to exercise from there?
Well, there's another state that I think will get mixed up with if you get really into a project and it almost seems like you have tunnel vision, and everything outside of that tunnel begins to disappear, and you're so hyper focused on a painting or you're writing or something like that, that's a different state. That state is kind of a creative or one-on-one connection with whatever is happening with you. That's a little different. Daydreaming is, and let me give you just an example. Say you're driving. Don't do this while you're driving. It's not right. But I'm just saying, I'm giving you an example. If you're driving and you start to kind of wander off, you're thinking about work or thinking about what happened yesterday or riding your bike or whatever, you start to wander off. That's the daydream state, where if you allow it to go, you'll go into a state where you're almost like, it's like you're dreaming. You're seeing yourself on your bike, or you're riding through the park or whatever. It's kind of an experience like that. That is kind of the launching pad for utilizing for these connections. Because what'll happen is, I would be in there and I'd be sitting in traffic, and then I'd begin to daydream because there's nothing to look at. It's nothing. So I started daydreaming, and that's when I first caught it, because the daydreaming state it puts you in that state where your mind is at that frequency where it can easily drift into certain things. I think what's happening behind the curtain of the daydream state, behind the veil, is where the subconsciousness is going, while the consciousness is being it's okay. So it's like the consciousness is watching a movie about what you're thinking, the subconsciousness goes behind the screen and experiences these alternate realities or dimensions while your consciousness is busy looking at this screen, and that's its entertainment. And then the subconscious comes back, and then the consciousness, there's no screen there.
Got it.
So what happened was I realized something was there behind the screen, and that's when I started the whole system. So once you put your brain activity level at that level of daydreaming,
Mhm.
that's what I utilize as a gateway to get beyond that.
Yeah, that makes sense because it seems like it borders on the hypnagogic. That's when I have a lot of
Right.
my experiences. And so if I force myself to take a nap, which is fairly easy, those have been some of my most profound experiences. So when you want to launch somewhere from that daydream experience, do you think or focus on it, or do you let it kind of wander in, or how are you practicing that? How would I practice that?
What I do is once I'm in the daydream state, you have to consciously become aware that you're in it, because in like a dream, it's hard, in order to become lucid, you have to realize. So what I've done is I start the daydream state, but for some reason, because of what I've been doing, my consciousness is always there. It's always aware of what's going on. So once I see it in there, then I say, okay, then I begin to go beyond that. You have to be consciously aware while you're in the daydream state that you are in the daydream state in order for it to occur. So you're almost double aware of what's going on.
So basically your observer is observing the experience, and that's
right.
when
It's like a double observation. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Jay's got his hand. So what we'll do is I'll give Jay the space to ask to talk, and then we'll wrap the call up. So go ahead, Jay. Where are you?
Yeah, just needed to unmute myself. Yeah, thanks, Mike, for the talk. It's been great listening to you. I was driving through a storm, so in my car, so I think I got most of it. But the way I see it, the subconscious, for those that are into Gnostic texts, the subconscious is the demiurge. That's the gatekeeper between this reality and all the others. So when we are born in this reality, there's the memory wipe, but we all come here with the same like a same package, like a load of stuff, basically, from what has happened when this whole thing was started. And we kind of keep building on that original package throughout our reincarnations, and it kind of keeps building up, and it feeds off from that. So but the demiurge, or the subconscious works as the demiurge. We all have like a 7 layers or 7 chakras. I don't like the word of chakras, but there's 7 energy fields in our bodies, and then there's the 8th one, which is the demiurge, or the subconscious on top of us. But the 7 energy fields, they're kind of vortexes that are between your physical and the astral. So they're in the ether. So, and all because in the Gnostic text that most here are familiar, they use a lot of terms like the archons. The archons are just patterns that are being repeated from that original package or baggage that we're all carrying here in this life. So in order for you to progress or move forward, you need to still do all those steps and kind of revisit all those energy points in your body, and then you have to go and get past that subconscious. But I can see the method of getting around the subconscious in just being repetitive and kind of relearning the skill. But yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that, but but yeah, there's like 7 different vortexes or portals that we're connected with from our physical to the astral and beyond. So, but in those, when you start raising your own awareness and your own consciousness, you have to like visit every single energy point within you. And if you're not willing to do the work in each of those energy points, you're gonna get stuck in that. So you have to like face everything that you have stuck in those energy points in order to get to your subconscious and then beyond. So that's kind of how it has been for me. And but because we're all connected on the it doesn't matter the terminology, it doesn't matter to me at all, because we're all the same on the fundamental level. We're all the same, but on top of that we have our mind which enables us to have this like individual journey, individual experiences. And on top of that mind, there's the corrupted level that comes from that original baggage that we all still carry when we come here. So unless you're willing to lose that baggage, you're not going to be moving. You're not going to be able to move forward in any way. And I've said this to a couple of people recently, because a lot of people have contacted me about this stuff as well. And because everybody, they kind of the goal is the same for everybody. When because there was talk about creating from the mind level, and on the mind level, when you're creating that, you're only creating if you want to. If you feel like you want to create a better world, and you have a vision of a better world, and your better world is just peace and happiness, white sandy beaches, and beautiful weather all the time. But that version is just your individual version. It might not be the perfect world for others, so it only creates like a polar opposite. So others might not like beaches or not that kind of weather. So in order to create from the mind, you're just creating polar opposites that are just causing like friction for this. But when you get past the mind, then you start like coming from a place that kind of works for everything and everybody as well. So the polar opposite thing goes away. And because there's been so many people coming and asking me about what should I do and where should I be looking at and all that stuff. And because they see like people, Mike has like a fundamental feeling and knowing of where he is on his path, on his individual, but he sees the kind of a bigger picture as well. So people usually come to ask people like that, or myself even, and they want to learn something. But I've been telling them, like, they've been seeing me drive a car around the town, and they kind of see that I now know how to drive the car, and they would also like to learn how to drive the car, but they come to me and so how do you do it? And I tell them how to do that, and then I tell them you need to go to driver's license school in order to get your driver's license, and then you need to learn that way you'll learn to drive the car. But they're not willing to take that course. They're not willing to take that driver's test. They just keep coming back to me and yeah, can't you do the test for me? Can't you get the driver's license for me? But nobody can do the work for you. You on the individual level, you have to do all the work. Nobody's gonna carry your cross for you. You need to walk your walk.
Yeah.
If you want, because it's so easy to just dabble around and kind of keep your mind occupied with learning new things. It's just mind masturbation. It's just entertaining for the mind. It's not going anywhere. But I also see that for me, because I used to do that for the longest time, it kind of still worked, like as because I kept hitting my head in the wall and I get hitting those dead ends. But now I see the path, like now it's easy to reverse the whole path and see that everything kind of had a purpose. So for those on the path, on like trying to get somewhere, just unsubscribe from everything and go within. That's the
Yeah.
Well, I do have one thing to say,
Yeah.
for Jay. One thing that I came up with that worked out is the strength of the illusion.
maybe I was.
Sorry. The strength of the illusion is stronger than the will of most people, and that's kind of how things work out. There's only going to be so many people that are going to look into it far enough to actually consider anything beyond what they'll normally see on any other YouTube channel or whatever. It's up to the individual, and nobody can do it for anybody else. I say that all the time. But that's the thing. We're dealing with something that's far beyond our conception, let alone our abilities as human beings. We can understand it. We can work on things to a certain degree. But from what I've seen, from what is working against us, it's beyond our level, obviously. And what it is it's I would call them entities, an energy force that utilizes us for energy. That's the first thing. And the way that they look at us is the way we would look at cattle as a food source. So, and if cattle tried to understand our concepts of technology and that sort of thing, it would be far beyond what they could even understand. And that's what in our physical state, in the state we've been locked into, we are the cattle right now. So we are the prey and they are the predators. I understand they're dark beings. I've seen them, but for me, it's not a thing. It's not about good and it's not about bad. It has nothing to do with, right and wrong, good or bad. What they're doing is they're doing what's good for them, and they see that as good for them. No difference than we would see if the only food source for us was cattle, and that's all we had, then we would have to look at them as a food source, and that's the way we would treat them. In any way possible. We've had to manipulate them in order to make them feel like they were doing better, whatever we would do. And that's the way they look at us, as a source. What we need to do is reverse the roles. We need to become the predator and they need to become the prey. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to combat our situation. Because as long as we remain the prey, then we don't have a chance. So what I've said in the past is, obviously, we're, as spiritual beings, we don't need to rely on technology, but we're in this state, we're in physical beings. Their type of beings obviously utilize technology. It's not the technology we understand, but they still need to rely on it. What we need to do is utilize their technology against them. That's the only way that we can understand and affect them on their level. So obviously they've introduced us to our technology. That's why we have technology. And at some level, that technology will feed back into what they created. So underlying things, getting control of their system and putting it under our control while we're still here, and working on ourselves so that when we pass on, we have a way to get out. But there's many things that we can be doing. But first of all, I always tell everybody, independently get a control of yourself. That's the first thing we have to do, because if we can't control ourselves, we can't affect anything outside of us, because then it's just, and there's only going to be a very minute number of us that are even going to do anything. A lot of them would consider it But when it comes to the point of actually having to stand up physically for something, most people will fold in like a wet paper bag. That's the way things work. You know, it's how much of a drive do you have? How well do you believe in yourself? And how much can you accept and actually move forward with?
Yeah, 100%. We're going to have to wrap this call up very shortly because I've got to be somewhere in about 20 minutes. I've got to leave. So I
Okay.
need to get ready for that. But I will ask this last question from Stephen, and then Mike, I'll get you to just share with everyone how they can contact you if they how they can get a hold of your books as well. And then we'll close the call. So Stephen asked in the chat here, feelings and emotions are governed by language. Language or word structure affects and directs conscious awareness. Feelings follow. Am I reading the right one? Our inner self-talk and I am conscious language is maybe the key to how we navigate the astral, just as it is here in the physical. Can you ask Mike his thoughts on making language or statements like non-interference now? I discern truth and accept only truth here now. I am my source and power. I create and direct my path. I am sovereign, etc.
Since we're living within a multi-layered existence with other beings, you know, outside of where we're at, and there's ones around us right now, I'm sure that we can't even see. We can make statements, and I know sometimes people realize, you know, they feel better when they make a certain statement before they go into the astral or, you know, meditate or whatever. Personally, it might have some, I don't know, maybe it has some effect, but I've never once ever been through, you know, going through and repeating anything or having to feel that I had to say a prayer or anything before I moved ahead, because it's never been part of my anything. So what I believe is having a grounded sense of morals and having and believing in yourself and going somewhere with a neutral, you know, with the whole neutral thought process, so that you're going there and you're experiencing things as they are. You understand there's manipulation, you understand there's things going on behind the scenes, but you accept it for what it is. I'm not going to sit there and once you start calling things out, then the communications begin to disappear. So you have to go in there with an open mind, but with a grounded sense of morals and beliefs, so that you're not going to be manipulated. Once they know that they can't manipulate you, then the communications are a much more standard level. So maybe for some people, if you are going to utilize verbiage or something like that, maybe that works for them, and that's fine. Whatever works for you. I tell people, you know, this is the way that I do it, but you do it the way that works for you.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. I don't know who that was. Very cool. And I think what potentially what Steve's talking about is it's almost it's like making a declaration of asserting of saying, I'm not going to contract. This is my intention.
When you move on, that, yeah, I don't know, but like I said, with the whole situation, I believe it's going to require some interaction. So if you're going to be there, I would just say, okay, put it in a judgment. You walk up to a desk. I don't know. I'm just saying is, if you're conscious, if you have to be there and you have to make a decision and somebody's putting you on the spot, you want to have 100% of your faculties of consciously awareness, lucidity available for you to make those decisions. You don't want it go falling on your subconsciousness or any part of that or any part of anything outside of what you are here now, daily consciousness. You want to be 100% there, 100% in control, and you want that person to be making the decisions, not something else or not someone else. And I believe that's where you got the illusional, drug-like states, and people are going to just allow things to happen because they believe at that point they don't have all their faculties, and that's why they would put you in the situation. So you're going to agree to it because you're not 100% there.
Yeah, and that's the work. That's the work that we've got to do in the physical.
Right.
All right, awesome. Okay, so Mike, you've got books on Amazon. Do you have any, Christy was asking earlier, do you have any printed books that are available anywhere?
I'm probably gonna have to start printing them myself. There's the My Dark Explorations, Portals, Astral Gateways. Then there's the Spiritualist Manifesto, A Guide to Freedom. And then there's Leaving the Illusion of Life and those are all on Amazon. And then I have my Rumble channel, which is My Dark Explorations, where the videos I put them all on there. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I can print books down the line. I'll probably end up doing it myself, but I just haven't done it yet. Sometimes people like to have a book in their hand, and I've gotten a couple of requests, so I'll probably end up doing that down the line.
Okay, well, once again, I just want to thank you so much for being here today and for giving us your time today to share with the community and to, yeah, just be really present with everyone and sharing your experiences and answering questions. Really appreciate that, Mike. Would love to perhaps do this again sometime in the future. So thank you once again, everybody, to you and for everybody for being here today.
All right. I appreciate the opportunity to get together with people that are interested. They want to take it, that take enough interest to actually show up and ask questions and just to be here. That's the thing. There's not enough people in our world that take enough interest outside of our daily lives or the media or all the drama that happens. You're taking your individual time that's precious, because time is the only resource that we have that can't be created or bought. So when you take your own individual time and set it aside for something like this, you are being consciously aware that there is an issue, you want to learn more about it, and there's a lot of people that just don't take that interest. It's a very small percentage of people. So I commend you for that, because we all have to work together, whether we're going to have situations where we don't agree on things, and that's understandable because we're all individuals, but at some point we all have an understanding that we want to learn more about what's going on around us, and that's great.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, we'll bid you all farewell. It's past midnight, I think, for some people in Europe, and yeah, so we'll bid you farewell, and I'll send the recording out to you guys. Okay, thank you, Mike, and I'll send it to you as well, of course.